لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد لا إكراه في الدين صدق الله العلي العظيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد معدن الجود والكرم وآله وبارك وسلم. All praise glory belongs to Allah Azza wa Jal, and as peace and blessings upon the best of creation, our master and leader Sayyidina Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on his noble companions, pure wives, esteemed Ahlul Bayt. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raise all their ranks and give us all tawfiq to follow in their footsteps. Alhamdulillah, Deen Islam is the perfection of all previous deens, of all previous revelations which were revealed to all the Anbiya alayhi salam, and it is the true path, the path of peace and the path of submission to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Deen Islam has a fundamental aspect, and that is the aspect of free will. The aspect of free will in that every person has a free will and choice to choose the right path and the wrong path. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not compelled everyone to become Muslim. He has not forced people. Allah Azza wa Jalla, if He will, He could have made everyone into believers, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not do so. He states in his Surah Baqarah, La ikraha fi deen. There is no compulsion in deen. There is no compulsion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He shows the people, this is Islam. If you choose it, it is for your betterment. If you don't, then you will be ruined. And in Surah Kafirun, again Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions to say to those who don't believe, Lakum deenukum waliyadeen. Lakum deenukum waliyadeen. To you your religion, to us our religion. To each his own. There is no compulsion. And in many places of Noble Qur'an, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah emphasizes this. He also mentions in the 5th chapter, the 42nd verse in Surah Ma'idah, that if they come to you, either judge between them or don't interfere. Turn away from them. If the non-Muslims are to come to you, O Prophet of Allah, he tells the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if the disbelievers come to you, either judge between them or turn them away. Don't interfere with their affairs. And then he also mentions in the 42nd surah, the 48th verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that if they turn away from you, we have not sent you as a guardian upon them. We have not sent you as a guardian over them. Upon you is nothing but to convey the message. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace and blessings be upon him, only came to deliver the message. As it states in Surah Yasin, وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينَ, that there is nothing upon us except to deliver the message clearly. Once the message is delivered, whether the people accept or don't, it's entirely a different matter. So Deen Islam has essentially been a deen of tolerance, a religion of tolerance and a religion of coexistence. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though the majority of mankind do not believe, Allah is still hospitable to them. Allah still gives them rain. Allah still gives them food. Allah still gives them shelter. Even those who are the enemies of Allah, who do not believe in Him, who are the enemies against humanity, even those people who are killing and murdering and raping and pillaging and burning the whole world today, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is still showing them mercy. He is still showing them mercy. If He wills, He could turn the world upside down in a moment, but He's not doing this. Why? وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Because He says that you, O Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you are a mercy to the entire universe. This is why Allah is not destroying the oppressors today. He's not doing this. Whereas in previous nations, the people of Ad, the people of Thamud, the people of the Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, these people were destroyed by great winds, earthquakes, floods, and all sorts of divine punishment. But when the last messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam came, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spread His mercy over the entire creation. So if we look towards the noble sayings of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we can see that he mentions, whoever kills a person who has a truce with the Muslims, an agreement with the Muslims, then he shall never smell the fragrance of paradise. This is in Sahih Muslim. Allahu Akbar. A person who unjustly kills a non-Muslim, he will never smell the fragrance of paradise. Who is telling us this? The Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then he states in Sunan Abi Dawud Sharif, beware, whoever is cruel and hard on a non-Muslim minority, curtails their rights, or burdens them with more than they can bear, or takes anything from them against their free will, I will complain against the person on the Day of Judgment. So the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, will stand against that person. The person who violates the rights of a non-Muslim minority living amongst Muslims. So his example was one of forbearance. And why we have to look at the first constitution of the blessed city of Madinah al-Munawwarah, when the Messenger of Allah ﷺ drew an agreement with the Jews and the Christians, the people of the book. Mainly they were Jewish people. And what did he do? In this constitution he mentioned that this nation is one nation, comprising of Muslims and non-Muslims. It is one nation. And to the Jews belongs fairness and equity. That they shall not be harmed and neither will their enemies be helped. The Jews have their religion and the Muslims have theirs. And if any dispute or controversy arises, it shall be referred to Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it shows that the Jews were given their rights, and they had their own school of learning, the Baytul Midras, where they would recite Torah and where they would learn the Jewish scripture and the Jewish tradition. The Prophet ﷺ allowed them this. Again, there is a famous letter of the Prophet ﷺ written to the Christian leaders of St. Catherine in Mount Sinai in Egypt, to show that the Christians are under the protection of Islam. And the Prophet ﷺ writes in this is a message from Muhammad ibn Abdullah, peace and blessings be upon him, as a covenant to those who adopt Christianity, near and far we are with them. Verily I, the servants, the helpers and my followers defend them, because Christians are my citizens, and by Allah I hold out against anything that displeases them. No compulsion is to be upon them, neither are their judges to be removed from their jobs, nor their monks from their monasteries. No one is to destroy a house of their religion, to damage it, or carry anything from it to the Muslims' houses. So you're not supposed to steal from their churches and from their houses as well. Should anyone take any of these, he would spoil the covenant, the promise of Allah, and he would disobey the messenger. And one who disobeys the messenger, he disobeys Allah. Verily, they are my allies, and they have my secure agreement against all that they hate. No one is to force them to travel or to oblige them, to force them to fight. So the Christians, they are not even supposed to be forced to fight in the Muslim army. The Muslim army is going to protect them. This was the way of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he says the Muslims are to fight for them. If a female Christian is married to a Muslim, it is not to take place without her approval. She is not to be prevented from visiting her church to pray. Their churches are to be protected, and they are neither to be prevented from repairing them, nor the sacredness of their covenants. No one of the nation of Islam, the Muslims, is to disobey this agreement until the Day of Judgment. So this was the human rights. Human rights, the right to worship, the freedom of worship, freedom of expression of religious faith and tolerance was given by the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam 1400 years ago. 1400 years ago. And in it he also guaranteed the rights of women as well, and the rights of the non-Muslim minorities, in particular the Christians and the Jews. Again, when the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he received a delegation of Christians, 60 Christians from Najran, a part of Yemen, and he received them at his masjid and he gave them so much hospitality. He treated them with great hospitality, and he even allowed them to pray in his masjid at that time. He allowed the Christians to pray, and he gave them great hospitality. And it mentions that he selected a non-Muslim, Amr ibn Umayyah al-Damri, as an ambassador to be sent to the Najis, the king of Ethiopia. So the Prophet ﷺ even had a non-Muslim representative. So it shows that he ﷺ would seek out the goodness of all people. He did not impose his own deen upon them, as many are falsely maligning the deen of Islam with today. Many people are spreading this false propaganda that the deen of Islam is based on force and coercion, and it is a means of killing people and bringing them forcefully to the deen of Islam. This is not a part of deen of Islam. To know the true Islam, we need to look at the example of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Again, the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, in the treaty of Hudaibiyya, which happened in the 6th year of Hijrah, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam made this agreement with the non-Muslims of Mecca. And this agreement, even though it was to the disadvantage of the Muslims, he did it in the pursuit of peace. It shows how far the deen of Islam goes towards a peaceful resolution. That in this agreement it was said, first of all, Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu was the representative of the Muslims, and he was going to write this agreement with the kuffar, with the non-Muslims of Quraysh, of Mecca. And when he is about to commence it, he is writing Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And the Quraysh said, no, we do not believe Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Just write Bismika Allahumma. In the name of Allah, our Lord, in the name of Allah. Just write that, but do not write Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim fully. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet says, this is for peace, just do it. Because it's the same meaning, in the name of Allah. Although he does not say the Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And then again, towards the end of the agreement, Sayyidina Ali was writing from Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the kuffar again, they disagreed. They said, no, we do not believe him as Rasulullah. So then what did the Prophet of Allah, Sayyidina Ali said, I cannot erase this with my own pen. Allahu Akbar. I cannot erase this. So the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the pursuit of peace, he himself wrote his own name, Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in this agreement, it was mentioned that if any Muslim is captured in Mecca, he will not be allowed to return to Madinah. Whereas if any non-Muslim is captured in Madinah, he is found in Madinah to Munawwara, he will be allowed to return to Mecca. And the Muslims and some of the companions at the time, they thought of this as a disadvantage. But later on, the wisdom, they saw in the wisdom of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that it was not the Muslims who broke this agreement, it was the non-Muslims who broke it. And eventually this led to the conquest of Makkah to Mukarram. Again, if you look in the examples throughout history, and before I go to the examples of history, let's look in the past of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. Again on the subject of coercion. Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, as is famously known, he would seek out guests to come and eat on his food table, on his dastafan. He would travel for miles in order to find someone who can become his guest and eat food with him. And on one occasion, a man came and sat at his dastafan to eat at his blessed meal. And that man was a mushrik, he was an idol worshipper. And that man, what did he do before they were about to eat? He praised the name of his idols. And Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam turned him away. He said, you are a mushrik, you are an idol worshipper, be gone from here. So he's gone. Allahu Akbar. Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam received revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam received wahi from Allah. And Allah Azza wa Jal told him, he said, oh Ibrahim, you turned him away. Ibrahim alayhi salam says, Ya Allah, he was a mushrik, he was a polytheist. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals to him, oh Ibrahim, I have fed him for 40 years. I have given him drink for 40 years. I have provided for him for 40 years. I have been patient with him for 40 years. Yet you turned him away in a moment because he was a mushrik. So what did Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam do? The next day, the following day, he went and he sought out that person and he called him to his dinner table. And when he called him to his meal, that person asked, why have you called me back? You turned me away. And then Ibrahim alayhi salam explained to him that Allah revealed this to me, and that person became a Muslim. So it shows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He wishes, He can make everyone into Muslim, but He doesn't. This is the divine will. This is the divine will of Allah, and Muslims submit to the will of Allah. So what did the Sahaba, the companions, do as well? Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu, when he set out to Jerusalem, and the Muslims captured Jerusalem in his reign, he radiyallahu anhu, he called back the Jewish people to resettle in Palestine. He recalled 70 Jewish families, and he allowed them to resettle around the holy place. And then he asked the Christian people, where is the temple of Hazrat Sulaiman alayhi salam? And when he asked them, and he realized that they had not preserved it, it became a place where they were tipping rubbish. And what did Hazrat Umar Farooq radhiyallahu anhu? He went himself, and with his own blessed hands, he picked up the rubbish and he threw it, and he began to clean the holy places. And this was the reverence, the honor and respect which the deen of Islam, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, had taught our ummah. This was the reverence he taught our ummah, to respect the sacred places and the sacred relics of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the holy places. And then again, even during the lifetime of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what else would he do? A Bedouin came into the masjid and he urinated in the masjid. This is in Bukhari, this is in Tirmidhi, Jami' al-Tirmidhi. He came into the masjid and he's urinating in the masjid. The Sahaba are going to get angry. The Sahaba become angry. What is this guy playing at? He's urinating in the masjid. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam kept them calm. He kept them calm, and then later he addressed that person. He said, do you not know this is our masjid? This is a house of worship of Allah. We do not behave like this in this place. And that person became a Muslim. That person became a Muslim. And then again, in Bukhari and Muslim, in the two most authentic books of Hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw a janazah, a funeral of a Jewish person. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam stood up, and Sahaba again are asking, Ya Rasulullah, but he is not even a Muslim. Allahu Akbar. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, Banda to hai na. He is still a person, he is still a soul. So he showed this tolerance to other faiths. And if you look in the history of Islam, a famous example is that of India. Right? Muslims ruled India for many centuries, but the majority of its citizens always remained non-Muslim. And Muslims never forced the clearly majority non-Muslim majority. Muslims never forced them to accept Islam. Even today, its vast majority is Hindu. Because our elders, our forefathers never forced them to accept Islam. If they had willed, they could have made the entire Indian subcontinent Muslim. But they did not do this. Because why? They tolerated other faiths. And this has been mentioned by even non-Muslim historians. A Sikh historian, Khuswant Singh, in his first volume on the history of Sikhs, he mentions this in this book. Again, it was the way of the Sufis, the Sufiyai Kiram, Khwaja Gharib Nawaz, the benefactor of the poor, Khwaja Mu'in Chishti rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh. He mentioned that people must develop a river-like generosity, and an affection like the sun, and hospitality like the earth. They must be tolerant and accepting of all people. The highest form of devotion, according to him, was to redress the misery of those in distress, to help those who are in need, to fulfill the need of the helpless, and to feed the hungry. And his dargah today is visited by Hindus, by Sikhs, by Muslims, Christians, Jews, fire worshippers. Everyone visits his dargah in Ajmer Sharif, because he was a symbol of peace and tolerance, and he was Sayyid. He was from the Ali Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was a big wali of Allah. And he brought the deen of Islam to the Indian subcontinent. Again, another prominent historian of the West, a historian of the Ottoman Empire, Roderick Davison, an American historian, he mentions in his book on the reform of the Ottoman Empire, he states, it might in fact have been argued that the Turks were less oppressive of their subject people than were Prussians of the Poles, than the English were of the Irish, or the Americans of the Negroes. This is what he writes. The Americans, they oppressed the black people. The Prussians, the people of northern Germany, an old nation known as Prussia, they used to suppress the Polish people. And the English used to oppress the Irish. But he says the Turks, they were tolerant towards the non-Muslims in their country. And then he states that there is evidence to show that in the late 19th century there was emigration from Greece into the Ottoman Empire. That even after Greece became independent and ruled by Christian people from Greece even still emigrated towards the Turkish Empire, because there was more tolerance in the Turkish Empire of the Muslims. So again we see the great level of tolerance. And just briefly, just to mention another book, extracting notes from the Jewish history, Medieval Jews Fleeing Persecution Take Refuge in the Ottoman Turkish Empire by Rachel Avraham, a Jewish writer. She states in this book that when Sultan Mahmud al-Fatih, rahimahullah ta'ala, Mahmud the Conqueror, when he conquered Constantinople in 1453, Istanbul, all of you should know his name, Sultan Mahmud al-Fatih, rahimahullah ta'ala, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam promised the Muslims would conquer in Constantinople, and their army will be the best army, and their leader will be the best leader. And this was Sultan Mahmud al-Fatih, rahimahullah ta'ala, at the age of 21, who conquered Constantinople. And what did he do? She states that he issued a proclamation to all the Jews, stating, whoever amongst you of all my people that is with me, may his God be with him. Let him come to Istanbul, the site of my imperial throne. Let him dwell in the best of the land, each beneath his vine, and each beneath his fig tree, with silver and with gold, with wealth and with cattle. Let him dwell in the land, let him trade in it, and let him take possession of it. It shows how he called out to the Jewish people and said to them, come and settle in my lands. And then even Sultan Bayazid, rahimahullah ta'ala, after the Christian Inquisition in Spain and Portugal, the Christians drove out the Muslims and the Jews. In 1492, the Christian monarchs, Isabella and Ferdinand, they drove out the Muslims, they drove out the Jews. They said, either accept Christianity, either be killed, or either leave our country. Allahu Akbar. And what did they do? Sultan Bayazid, rahimahullah ta'ala, of Turkey, he declared and he openly accepted the Jewish people into his lands. And approximately 250,000 Jewish people migrated from Spain and Portugal to the Turkish Ottoman Empire. Most of them in Salonika and Istanbul, but approximately 250,000 according to historical estimates. And this shows again the tolerance and level of tolerance and forbearance of the Deen of Islam towards the non-Muslim minorities. And before I finish, I would like to mention a few more quotes. One quote especially of George Bernard Shaw. George Bernard Shaw, he is a famous Western writer. He states in his Genuine Islam, the 8th volume, he states, I believe if a man like him, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I believe if a man like him were to assume the dictatorship of the modern world, he would succeed in solving its problems in a way that would bring much needed peace and happiness. And he says, I have studied him, the man, and in my opinion, he is far from being an antichrist. He must be called the savior of humanity. And then he states, I have prophesied about the fate of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that it would be acceptable to the Europe of tomorrow as it is beginning to be acceptable to the Europe of today. And he writes this in 1936, it is published. And again, Michael Hart, a leading person of America, a leading American writer, he states in his book, he writes, the ranking of 100, the 100 greatest people in the history of mankind, the most influential persons in history. He states, my choice of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, to lead the list of the world's most influential persons may surprise some readers, and it may be questioned by others, but he was the only one man in history who was supremely successful in both religious and secular levels. And in order to become supremely successful in both religious and secular levels, a person has to have a level of tolerance and forbearance. So when we look at the historical facts and the facts written by the people of knowledge and history, then we look at the current affairs of the world today, we can clearly understand that these people claiming to be an Islamic state in Syria and Iraq, they are not an Islamic state, but they are the enemies of Islam. They are not even Muslim. These people are kafir. They have no affiliation with Islam. How can a Muslim person destroy the tombs of Prophet Yunus alayhi salam, the tombs of Sayyidina Uwais Qarni radiyallahu anhu, the tomb of Sayyidina Imam Nawawi rahmatullah alayh? Can a Muslim even harm the tomb of a non-Muslim? No. But these people are enemies of Islam. How can a Muslim burn a person alive? How can he burn a person alive when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us that only Allah Azza wa Jal is the one who burns his creation in hellfire, but other than Allah, none may punish with fire. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in his Qur'an that one who kills even one soul unjustly, it is as though he kills entire mankind. And then these people are killing elderly women, children, non-Muslims, Muslims, everyone. And do you think these people represent Islam? Of course not. These are the enemies of Islam and planted deliberately to defame and denigrate the honor of Islam. So we distance ourselves from this. And then again, we need to ask the Zionist state of Israel. Look at the way Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu, he allowed the Jewish people to settle in the Holy Lands. Look at Sayyidina Salahuddin Ayyubi rahimahullah ta'ala, after the Crusades, he allowed the Jewish and Christian people to settle freely in his lands. Look at Sultan Muhammad al-Fatih rahimahullah ta'ala, he called out to you Jewish people. Sultan Bayazid rahimahullah ta'ala, he called out to the Jewish people. He said, settle in my lands, live in my lands. Who are you today to drive out Muslims from their homes, to drive out people from their homes, when your own Torah is saying do not kill, when your own Torah is teaching show love to your neighbor, show honor to your neighbor? This is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the tawfiq to justly follow his commands, to follow the commands of the Anbiya alayhi wassalam, and to forgive me for any of my shortcomings, and to clarify the misunderstandings, and to clear the misunderstandings around the Deen of Islam, and grant us all the tawfiq and understanding. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ.